we should be seeing a stream. Very much hoping that Restream is doing the thing properly. Let me know when you see us.
Live. I see a live.
On YouTube's?
Mm-hmm.
Then we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Hot Pole Position podcast.
Professional
Yes.
podcast.
Nobody ever has technical issues with a live stream. This is the weekly podcast that covers music production, news and events, including what's going on in the rock and guitar worlds, as well as some nerdy technical talk about computers and all those kind of things that relate to what we do at our recording studio. That is Hop Pole Studios. Coming to you live from Manchester, England, I'm your host Adam Steele, and this is Liam Wright, and this is the Hop Pole Position podcast. Roll the intro. Do love that I get eerie silence, just as everybody else gets the actual song. But yes, good to see you, everybody, as we tune in live. How are you, Liam?
I'm good. I've just been given access to the GOG Galaxy 2 beta, so I am super happy in Geek World.
Awesome.
But no, yeah, I'm good. Tired. Super busy. Working properly for once. Don't like it. Works hard.
Work is hard.
But no, I'm good. I'm good and invigorated is a good way to say it. How are you?
I'm alright. Also kind of invigorated. I've been looking after Ivy again. She's not been well. Still, she's having like more colds and flus and viruses than you would possibly believe.
Well, it's all good for immune system for later on in life.
Sure, but it also means that we're up at all hours and that we end up suffering as well with coughs and sniffles.
That's not good
oh,
for
no
later.
intro music for them either. Huh.
Oh.
That's weird. Is that it's supposed to be set to go out on the stream? Oh. I'll investigate. I can actually see the meters going. So unless something's been pressed that shouldn't have been pressed. Yeah, okay. I will investigate. And of course, if you're hearing this on the iTunes or Spotify version of the podcast, I'll just have substituted that in there. So there was a technical issue. You won't have heard it. Never mind. But yeah,
Never happened.
Yeah, especially today. I've kind of had a resurgence today. So I finished editing and released the video about double kick pedals yesterday, I think. But from that, I had all the assets then together for the other videos in the series. So I managed to edit 2 videos today and actually mixed 3 videos on my lunch break. I say lunch break because when I look after Ivy, she goes down for a 2-hour nap in the middle of the day. So if I can cram a sandwich in my face in 5 minutes, that gives me 1 hour and 55 to do whatever else I've got to do that day. So yeah, I'll be playing you a song later on from my mixing adventures today because I had a band who've previously been on the podcast called The Cavs in, but we were recording in a very different way. We recorded them essentially live this time with a few overdubs, which is very different technically, but if you have some experience with it, it can actually turn out quite well.
Cool.
So, back to the bump. The podcast is live at 8 PM UK time, usually a little bit late, on YouTube, Facebook and Twitch and Mixer, and can be found afterwards, as previously mentioned, on podcast form through iTunes and Spotify, on our own website as well, hotpolestudio.co.uk. Where you can also see the latest videos from the YouTube channel and any social updates, or at least that's the plan. I'm actually catching up on that. I uploaded a few video thumbnails this week. But
Nice.
yeah, it may be one of those things that happens to me quite a lot, where I'll actually do a load of hard work, catch up, and then we'll find an automatic button to fix it a minute too late. Yes, coming up tonight, we'll be talking about, as the headline says, the new Behringer Wing. We really do seem to have Behringer Corner every week recently.
They need to start paying us some money.
It's getting ridiculous. But this is genuinely a big one. The Behringer Wing is their new mixing console, And yeah, so this isn't just a synth, although there is a Behringer synth we're going to talk about that I haven't already talked about, because typical flipping Behringer corner. Yes, we're also talking about the mystery keyboard that we talked a week or two ago about, called Osmos by Expressive E. Gonna talk about Kerry King's guitar that we mentioned last week. JHS are releasing their new version of their color box pedal. Joyo are making a cheap Chinese preamp where they've got 9 classic preamps into one pedal somehow. And breaking news, Mesa Boogie are releasing a new product which is trying to make up for the mistakes of their previous cab clone. All this and more. Yes. And when we've talked about all of that, we will be answering your questions. So anybody who's watching live, roughly half an hour from now, we'll want you to get your technical questions into the chat about music production, guitar production, all that kind of good stuff. But save those for when we come to that section. If you've got anything that you want to have in mind, write them down in a notepad or something and then get them in the chat at the relevant time, which we will mention. So before we move on to the news, that's where I usually say, what's new with you? I do need to put those two things together, because I've pretty much told you what I'm doing this week, and you've said the same.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, just busy with still unannounced project. Just going well. Excited. Hopefully before Christmas we'll be able to say some more on it. But no, yeah, just stupidly long hours, and working with another YouTube channel actually that I need to talk to you about afterwards. Someone that you know very well, helping them out now to grow a very big YouTube channel. He does a podcast on Instagram as well, so potentially might get him on. He was staying in how can I say this without so he runs a channel that's to do with martial arts, and turns out that quite a few famous musicians are into martial arts, and are actually customers of his on his website. And he, having going through his invoices, noticed a few names that he thought, oh, that's pretty cool, and got in touch with them, asked them what they were doing what their interest was in martial arts, and long story short, ended up in New York, staying in their flat and going to some festivals and having their kids being given really cool memorabilia from the band and stuff. Can't give any names, not name dropping, can't do anyway. But yeah, it's pretty cool. Martial arts and music go hand in hand, so maybe we'll try and get some bit of crossover for a bit of fun there.
Indeed, they do. There are quite a lot of bands where I know, and actually the world knows, that they're into martial arts. Not all of them. Some musicians are particularly private, but I know there's people like Phil Collin from Def Leppard's a big one. He's been a martial arts guy for years and years and years. Steven Seagal is actually a musician as well, so he's kind of on the other side. But
yeah, I mean, the only reason I can't mention is because I can't mention their names, given that they are like a client of this person. Not that it's a secret that they're into martial arts, just that he's working with them. But because he'll probably come on the show, so 2 and 2 together and stuff. But he may tell us the anecdotes if we get him on. We can ask him and see.
Yeah.
But no, some exciting stuff, and we'll see if we can make that happen at some point.
That would be absolutely fantastic. You'll have to tell me who it is after the stream, because I genuinely don't know.
You can't figure it out. Okay.
I'm sure I could work it out.
Big martial arts channel.
Oh no, I know who our friend is.
Oh right, who the musician is? Oh no, you wouldn't. But it's not so. It's not like A-list musician, but it's definitely someone that we listened to growing. Oh, I definitely listened to growing up.
Huh.
In fact, they played at my university graduation ceremony.
Wow.
Interestingly.
Oh, someone in chat says big mugs. Yeah, I'm using a large Stein. I'm not doing alcohol today.
I'm drinking fake lilt.
Fake lilt. Flilt, if you will.
Yeah, tropical blast.
Yes. Feel free to drink along if you are of legal drinking age, or non-alcoholic if you are not. Or just if you don't want to. Hydration is important, although it does leave awkward gaps in your podcast, so it's a fine balance. Now, on to the news, because there's been some quite important news this week for music tech kind of guys. Even though we're coming up to Black Friday, we're not really going to talk about Black Friday this week. I'm going to leave that for next week's stream. Because next week's stream is going to be the day before Black Friday. So a lot of companies have announced deals that they're going to do, but some of them haven't yet. Quite a lot of companies in the music tech space probably only will announce the day or 2 days before what their discounted deals are going to be. So, announcement now, actually, if anyone's tuning in to watch this, I will be putting a stream schedule event up, but next week, after the podcast stream, I'm going to do a dedicated live video to all the Audio Tech Black Friday deals. I've already started collecting them in a document for the ones that are available, and we'll mention them. Question in the chat. Are we allowed to spam deals in Discord as you find them? Sure. In the general part of our Discord, if you find a Black Friday deal that you find is actually a really good deal and not just some kids made a plugin pretended to sell it for £100 and suddenly it's £1. But if it's an actual genuine deal, do feel free to put them in there. Do be aware that I probably won't respond to every single one of them because I will have seen quite a few of these already. But yeah, if you want to, go ahead. But yeah, that is next week.
And I will spam the Discord link in this chat.
Yes.
Ah.
Spam, spam, spam. Spam, spam, spam. Yes, get yourselves on our Discord, ladies and gentlemen. It's where we talk during the week about all the nerdy stuff. Oh, wow. Spam, spam.
Yeah. For free Black Friday deals, the only place to find them are Discord. There you go, clickbait.
Yes, so after next week's Thursday stream, so the night of Thanksgiving, I'll be doing a live video. Obviously, I would expect most of my American viewers not to see that live because it's going to be Thanksgiving. But then it'll be available for you to watch first thing Friday morning to catch up and see what's out there. And clicky, clicky, clicky.
Clicky, clicky.
Clicky, clicky. And if there's any Black Friday Amazon deals, I'll probably have affiliate links down in the description, which of course will help us out as well. But I wouldn't expect you to buy anything if it wasn't a deal for you. So, everybody wins. Now, on to the news. So, I'm clicking things and it's giving me links I don't even want. Last week, I think it was last week. Looking at my script, I'm going to veer off topic just before I talk about this and do this little section. So before we talk about this week's news, I wanted to briefly mention that this podcast is brought to you by you through Patreon. Huge thanks to all our supporters thus far. We are trying to grow the podcast with its viewership and its support, and it's something that we want to make a full-time thing, and your support really does go a long way to helping us do that. We've talked about the Discord server and there's early access. As I was saying, I've edited loads of videos this week. I will be releasing them in a kind of orderly fashion, but they're already on the Patreon for anyone who signs up to view right now. And I've got loads of stuff which will be ready in the next few days because, like I was saying last week, I've got loads of videos that are like 90% edited and have been kind of waiting on the last bit. I now have the last bits ready, so it's going to be bang, 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 bang. Tons of content, and you're going to see it all first. So, patrons, thank you so much. On with the news.
The news.
Yeah. Kerry King from Slayer has moved from BC Rich to Dean Guitars. We knew about this. We talked about this last week. But this guitar looks very Kerry King-y. It's got kind of flying V with horns and stuff. I don't think I'll ever buy one because it's $8,666.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, that's a lot of dollars.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I can understand guitars not being cheap because they're handmade, but wow.
Yeah, it's a bit of moolah, that is.
Yeah.
Why?
Why? Because it's made in USA. It's got LEDs in it. It's
oh wow!
It's
thousands
Kerry
of
King.
pounds worth of LEDs.
Yeah. there's probably at least a couple of grand going straight to Kerry King. It's a limited run of 50. So this is very much...
It's a collector's piece.
Yeah, you've got your metal playing lawyers and that kind of people who've got lots of spare money. And like, I used to have long hair, and I remember what it was like, and I've got money now, so I'm just going to buy this and hang it on the wall and play Angel of Death once. If that's what you want to do, you do you. I mean, it's got one pickup. It's got a sustainiac in the neck, which means that you can hold a note forever. The fretboard's made of ebony with pearl, stone, and ebony custom inlays. Which do look kind of cool, but not $8.5 grand cool.
No.
Yeah.
No.
That's a lot of money. I mean, I could probably go to Gibson and have them make me that for $4 grand. And that's Gibson. Whee. But yeah, just wanted to mention, we were talking about the guitars last week. Yes, that's a lot. So, this Expressive E company, we talked about they were releasing a new style of keyboard. This thing is really fascinating, and I'll play a little bit of the video for the chat, and hopefully I won't get copyright striked. But this is made with a collaboration with a company called Haken Audio. Haken Audio make a thing called a Continuum. I've never actually played one, but I've seen a guy called Jordan Rudess play a Continuum, the keyboard player from Dream Theater, and this is a serious piece of equipment. It's a long the Continuum is a long kind of rubber strip, but it's got 3D, so it's a keyboard, but you can go up and down, and you can go left and right, so you can slide between notes, and the harder you press it, it makes different sounds. And so these guys have now made this keyboard, which looks like a keyboard, but does some really weird stuff.
Okay.
Like, you can touch it, and it's touch sensitive. And that's cool because, you know, with the usual keyboard, you've got to give some real pressure on it just to get anything. But as this guy keeps playing, you'll see that he'll hold a note down, press it, and then wiggle it. And by wiggling the key up and down, left and right, it reacts to that.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm a little bit delayed. Yeah, that's cool.
And each note that he's doing with this pad thing, each one is blooming separately. I'm just going to skip ahead and see if I can find a bit of him bending the keys.
So all the effects on that are just him, aren't they?
Yeah, so he's playing a synth, but he's controlling it. He's doing all these changes with his fingers.
Like, it's got like a bit of reverb and stuff, but all the the wob 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 is just the way he's playing.
Yeah,
that's insane. That's really cool.
It's very clever.
I mean, ultimately, does it matter? Because you could do those effects, but like, are you going to create anything new out of it? But I don't know. I think the expressiveness and the human element you can add to it should add a subtlety that should feel really cool with the right person on the keyboard.
Yeah, you have to be a good player. But with the Continuum, I think the issue with the Continuum, which isn't this, is what it was just kind of a big rubber strip. So it was kind of like this, but it didn't look like a traditional keyboard. But what you could do with it is you could almost play it like a guitar, because you could bend notes, you could slide up to get feedback, and you could do complete volume swells. And yes, on a traditional keyboard you can have like pitch bend wheels and modulation wheels and stuff, but they take a whole other hand. So I've always actually, as a keyboard player, I've always been frustrated that like, I hold a note down and I want to wobble that note. Whereas with the
Mhm.
guitar, if I do that with my left hand, the guitar does that.
Well, isn't that what foot pedals are for?
Yeah, but again, it's taking up extra limbs where you probably, you want. If you've ever played a guitar and then gone back to a keyboard, you get frustrated that why can't I put the expressiveness in that same hand?
Mhm.
And it's the transferable skills for a lot of keyboard players are exceptionally talented. I have the highest respect for professional keyboard players because it's one of the most notoriously difficult Western instruments to play, in my opinion.
Mhm.
And usually those kind of players are so talented that transferring the skills to doing something like playing on a guitar means that once they go back to a piano, you do start to go, well, I really like being able to bend these notes and bring this volume out here and that kind of thing. And you get
Mhm.
frustrated that you can't do that. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's all there now. So that's fascinating. I don't know. Oh, yeah, so the prices. Oh, it's not going to be cheap, but you can get one at the moment for €1,100, but the full retail list price is going to be 1,800 or 17.99, which, considering the niche and the expressiveness of this instrument, I wouldn't have expected it to be cheap.
Mhm.
Question. All the chat from YouTube is repeating in Discord. Is that supposed to happen? Yes, I've put chat relay on from Restream, although I might turn it off if it becomes a nuisance.
Yeah, it's a bit spammy. Like anyone's gonna get notifications for all of that.
Are they?
Mm. Well, yeah, if they've got notifications turned on for the channel, then they will.
Ah.
Like we yeah we can like you
There we
could
go.
maybe make
Relay mode off.
um yeah you could maybe make like a well yeah let's chat about whether it's got
Yeah,
any value
maybe make a
because you
channel
could
for it.
make a channel for it that's something but
Yeah.
yeah Windows
Oh,
9
yeah, it
pop up in
says
corner
Windows annoying
yeah
pop up in the corner. Fair enough.
yeah
Then let's not do that.
yeah it's that sort of stuff that makes people mute your server and then no one ever comes back to it.
Ah.
I know I have a big Discord server. No one ever comes back to it. There's like I don't know how many people on my server. 200 people. So yeah, there's a lot of people that leave every day because if you're not active in the channel and there's
Mm.
other people just spamming shit like my mate Matt posting stuff from Reddit because he thinks it's fun. Yeah,
Hmm.
you got to get the nuance right with Discord.
Right.
Anyway, on with the
Onward
music.
to our title piece of news. The Behringer Wing. This thing, and I'm going to put this on silent, this thing seems kind of fascinating. It's the next step in digital mixers. So Behringer a few years back made the X32, which pretty much changed live sound as an entire thing because, of course, then competitors came along and made similar products.
Hmm.
And between them, an entire environment came along. And so, yeah, that was the way it worked. But now this new Behringer Wing, it strikes me as a little odd, but it's going to be very clever. So it's
Okay.
it's a full digital mixing desk. Let's bring up some of the text. So it's got these AES 50 ports on it, which the X32 had as well, and they're like a single. It's like an Ethernet port with a kind of a secure thing on it. And each one of
Hmm.
them, I think, can give you 64 channels of audio, so you can run these digital snake boxes, which is
Hmm.
what I think this wing is expected to be used with, really, because it only has 8 mic preamps and 8 outputs on the Behringer Wing,
Hmm.
which isn't really enough for a full show, but it's got the capability of adding, like it says, another 144 inputs through preamps or whatever. And yeah, I mean, it makes sense because if I was going to have something like a Behringer Wing with the big mixing surface, half the reason that you use a digital desk rather than an analog desk is that you don't need to have a big set of cables running around the building anymore. You just have a single Ethernet cable from your stage box. So if you buy an X32, which has got 32 channels of preamps, you've spent a lot of money for something that you're not going to use apart from the control surface. So it kind of makes sense that they've done it that way, I guess. It's got a big touch screen, which the X32 didn't have a touch screen. It's got an option of using either Wave Sound Grid or Dante, which is all Ethernet-based audio. It's got an inbuilt 48-channel USB interface with DAW remote control, so you can do something like remote control Pro Tools with it. What else has it got? It's got things like real lexicon reverbs and all that kind of stuff inbuilt. Every channel can have proper SSL and Neve EQs and that kind of stuff.
Oh.
Yeah. It's got insert effect slots for every channel. That's like 400 channels or something stupid.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really powerful as a digital mixer. It's got more processing than I can possibly do anything with. Even more inputs that are all digital, low latency interface for personal monitoring, which they've said that there aren't many products for that yet, but that's the new standard that's going to be developed for. And it's even got shiny little things like it glows onto the desk and it's got lights on the back that light up its jack sockets and that kind of stuff. So was it basically an X32 with a tablet? No, it isn't. No, that would defeat the purpose. There's a picture of it. So, yes, it's got control surface that's motorized. That's kind of where the similarities with the X32 end, because like I was saying, it doesn't have nearly as many preamps inbuilt, but it's expected almost to be used with digital snake boxes, which seem to be the standard now anyway. It's got a USB recorder inbuilt. It's got 2 SD card slots. You can record multi-channel audio too, right inside the device. You don't need a separate recorder, which as a live sound guy is great, because that means that I could record the entire show without having an external recorder. Doesn't have ADAT ports. Doesn't need ADAT ports. It's got AES-50 ports, which are far better. And if studios ever move to AES-50, I might move with it. I'm fine with what I have now, but as a technology, it's a very, very good one. Oh, was that the picture I was looking for? Yeah. Oh. Yeah, so if we look at this, it's got, 2 SD card slots, so you can record redundantly to 2 SD cards without a separate recorder. Or if you want to hook it up to Pro Tools using the USB interface, you can do that. It's just very, very, very well thought out. The downside is it's not cheap. Compared to the X32, I think it said it was about $3,000 for one of these. And that's not including the digital snakes that you would use for actually getting sound off the stage. But then a lot of guys who are using an X32 up till now would already have that. They'd already have their digital snakes, because they're intercompatible, they're the same technology, that's not changed. So if you've got either the Behringer S32 or SX16 snakes or the Midas equivalents, which are better quality preamps, but also higher cost, depends who you're working with and what you need, then you literally just plug them straight into the Wing. You can also use an iPad with this, but as far as a hands-on surface, it seems much more intuitive than the X32, but then it's just a logical step forward. It's just the leap. What I'm kind of interested in is going to be the kind of subcategory versions, if you will. How to explain? So when the X32 came out, it was quite expensive, and there was only the one thing, and that was the X32, the big boy. Then they made a compact version, which was cheaper and had less mic inputs. Then they made a cheaper one still, which didn't even have the touch faders because it was designed to basically just be used on an iPad. Then they made these little rack mount ones, which were even cheaper still. So it depends what you need out of it. But right now, as far as the Wing goes, there is just this, the big boy version. But I would bet money that inevitably there will be smaller and cheaper versions that will then propagate through live sound venues and touring rigs the world over.
Yep.
It's all about what you can afford and what you can justify. I know plenty of engineers who, like, the big X32 with all the touch faders and everything will justify $3,000 or whatever it was when it came out, because that's paid for itself many, many times over, because these guys will then plonk that right in the middle of the front house. It's almost kind of a status symbol to have a big desk, even though they probably wander out into the crowd with an iPad and do half the mixing that way. But then if you're taking a much smaller tour out, you can get the rack mount version, hook that up to your iPad, not have any touch surface anywhere, have something that's much smaller to transport and cheaper to buy. And that's been kind of the status quo. So I think it's really interesting that they're going in this direction of basically much more performance out of the platform.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really promising for the future. The one downside that some people were complaining about is, this one doesn't do 96 kilohertz. All the competition's doing 96 kilohertz. Anyone who knows anything about, like, done some serious reading up on sample rates knows that means pretty much nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Some people claim that higher sample rates sound better, but, like, as a good example, the Axe FX is the guitar emulation thing right now. And they run at 48 kilohertz, not because they have to, but because they can. And their creator's written a whole white paper about why it makes logical sense. And I mean, why spend?
Do you not have more headroom when you're using 96? Is it like just from my, is it not like shooting something at 4K and exporting it in HD? You will get.
No, that's more like 16-bit and 24-bit.
Mm-hmm. So what are you getting then?
Well, the sample rate is twice, or the sampling rate, if we're being clear, means that the sound is sampled twice as often, which means that you can record, because of the whole Nyquist theorem thing, sounds up to 40 kilohertz instead of 20 kilohertz, because the thing about Nyquist theorem basically is that you can only capture sounds accurately up to half of the digital sampling rate.
Right.
Now, what that really means, humans can hear up to about 20 kilohertz if you've got good hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So any sampling rate above 40, theoretically at least, should be more than enough.
Right.
If you go above that, the only real benefits are to do with oversampling and making sure that everything's more accurate. But then as you go too high, you get into a problem that's called inter-sample distortion. And that means your machinery is going so fast, you actually end up causing more problems than you solve. Because then it adds in errors that you didn't need to be in there.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a big thing. There's a man called Dan Lavery. A lot of the biggest studios, mastering studios, mixing studios in the world use Lavery converters. And they can be £10,000 or dollars for a stereo converter. They're not cheap. We'll have six. Yeah. The Lavery Gold converters, and they don't run above 96 kilohertz and never will. And Dan Lavery wrote a white paper and basically said, if I could, I'd run these at 64 kilohertz because that's the perfect cutoff point for all my filters to be away from audio, but also not have all this extra rubbish on the top end. And unfortunately, most companies didn't go with that. Although RME devices can actually run at 64 kilohertz. Fun fact. But nobody else can, so it's almost pointless. Oh, we've got someone watching through a translation app. Welcome.
Yes.
That's pretty
He's
cool.
learning English through you. He is doomed.
Absolutely doomed.
To have an Oldham accent.
Yeah, I'm trying to be quite clear, but if you want to understand me and you don't speak English, maybe go and watch all of Game of Thrones. Then come back.
Anything Sean Bean's ever been in.
Yes. Anybody in Game of Thrones who lives in the North has kind of a similar accent to me. I don't want it. I'm Jon Snow.
I grew up 5 minutes from you, but my accent's slightly different.
Yeah, you're from Cheshire.
But, yeah, just
what does your address say?
Manchester.
Is it?
My old parents' address said Cheshire, but
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Well, now you live in
yeah,
Manchester.
But it's Cheshire. It's like that bit of Cheshire in the point that sort of sticks up and goes round in between Derbyshire and Manchester and Lancashire. And it's like, oh yeah, we'll be Cheshire. Fuck off, no you're not. The bottom of our road is Lancashire. We were apparently Cheshire. Yeah, no. Anyway.
Yes, anyway, we digress.
All the north.
So yeah, the Behringer Wing is going to be very exciting. I certainly won't be buying one because I'm not a big live sound guy. I go out and I do live sound, but usually with venue-provided equipment. But yeah, if I was to go out probably 6 months from now when this platform's matured and had some updates, maybe there's a new, like I said, the compact version of it. If I was to go out and buy a mixing console, I would probably buy one of these.
Does it fly?
Does
it fly?
Oh, you got to get 2 of them.
Okay, cool. But if we get 2, well.
You need 2 wings to fly.
Get 2 of them and flap them.
Yeah. Yeah, you need the digital flap add-on.
Man, imagine if we could grow the channel to such a size that we could buy 2 of these and attempt to fly with them just for the views.
Yeah. Someone in chat's asking, it's out. Apparently, Behringer have dropped that it's going to go into production in December, which basically means, 2 weeks from now? So
sometime next year?
Well, yeah, if they're going into production then, because this is Behringer's way recently. They don't do big lead-ups. They don't do...
No, go, hey, I did this thing. Beyonce style.
That's it. Their way seems to now be they don't do a 3-month build-up. They go, oh, by the way, clang, here is a product. So, yeah, I would fully expect this to be in people's hands before Christmas.
Looks cool, though, as well. It does look cool.
I wouldn't expect to see many out in the wild before Christmas, though, because a lot of touring companies will already be set for big Christmas tours, that kind of thing, and you don't really want to be changing all of your equipment just before a very big production.
No.
So I would bet that January, February, we'll start to see them in the wild. So...
keep your eyes out. If you spot one, take a photo and put it on the Discord.
Yes. From Behringer to Behringer. So, this is our usual weekly Behringer Corner now. Behringer do seem to be absolutely slamming out these synthesizers. And this week's synthesizer is the Wasp.
Okay.
The Wasp was it was fairly popular in the 90s, even though it's from the late 70s, excuse me. This version's not got the keyboard that it came with. It was a synth with a keyboard on it. This is just to be used as a MIDI device, which is probably easier for most people, because then you only need one MIDI keyboard and you can have maybe 3 or 4 of these.
Yeah.
Instead of cluttering up your desk with lots of keys that are all the same and a waste of space. But yeah, these things, they sound pretty bad, in my humble opinion, but some people like them. And Behringer have obviously gone, well, we have a way of doing this, let's do it.
They're just bringing back every old synthesizer that's ever existed now, aren't they? It's
Yes.
just, I mean, it's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
I would expect to see one of these on a channel like Look Mum No Computer within the month, because that guy does all sorts of crazy stuff and crazy synths. The guy from Look Mum No Computer, he's been on tour in Europe, and this week he made a synthesizer out of a cash register.
Nice.
Absolute madman. So yeah, you can do all sorts of stuff now. Next, from Behringer to Behringer one more time. Just a quick mention from yesterday. Behringer were asking questions on Facebook and basically asking its audience, should we make VST synths, like software synths?
Okay.
And why would they be asking that question if they weren't intent on doing it?
Just market research. You got a fan base. Find out. If the
I
answer is no,
guess.
don't do it.
I mean, that's the literal answer to the question, but
I mean, in reality, no kind of clickbait, not trying to be a news site that will just tell you that it's going to happen, stay here and find out more. In reality, could happen. Shows
yeah.
that they're thinking about it. Means that they're trying to figure out whether all the work, basically, I imagine it's whether all the work they're doing to recreate these synths physically, whether they should also have the team figure out how to put them into software form to release as well, or whether the hardware form is probably the best place for the market for it. It's probably what they're thinking. It's like we've already got the team doing the research and getting the sounds and stuff. So should we put the extra work into the software versions as well, or is the idea of these synths appealing to people because they want the tactile, physical approach to it?
That's a good thought.
So, because I say they're doing, as we just said, they're clearly recreating them anyway. So someone's probably thinking, could we create, I don't know, a service where there's just a huge bundle of all this stuff comes in one, and you have all the vintage synths in VST formats accurately produced, similarly to the hardware versions. Probably what they're thinking of.
David Imrie says it'd be cool if they did an access virus type of thing. Given most of the cheap synths don't do USB audio. Yes, the Access Virus was a massive synth in the early 2000s that changed everything, because it could do like heavy distortion and all sorts of stuff on a USB unit, and nobody else was doing that. But Access, who made the virus, basically became another company recently, and you may have heard of them, Kemper. Kemper are the people who make the Kemper guitar profiling amp that can sound like any other amp. So basically some of the best digital distortions, technically speaking, in the world are made by a company who were famous in the keyboard world for making some of the best digital distortions in the world. It's no coincidence. But yeah, it'd be really interesting to see... although typical Behringer, they might be, like the article says, dropping a VST synth before Christmas. Like, oh, by the way, clang.
Yeah, I still like the idea that they're holding holding the floppy disk, and they're like, "I'll just ask Facebook if they want this." Oh no, they don't. Oh well, I'll just throw it away.
Yeah.
It's like, if you want it, I have it in my hand right now. I can literally upload it. You want it?
So, from Behringer, finally to something else.
Boo.
Yes, I know. This is something that I'm quite interested in, although we have lots of this kind of thing. JHS make guitar pedals mostly, but they've brought back a pedal called the Colour Box, which is also a mic preamp, and it's really kind of cool. I'm guessing you've heard of a Neve 1073, which was like the preamp. Yeah. So what they did originally is they were trying to get the sound of stuff like, the song Revolution by the Beatles with that really heavily distorted, you say you want a revolution. Yeah, and it's really gritty guitars. That's basically a Neve 1073, but with the gain on just all.
Mhm.
The guitar sounds actually quite clean, but they did that with it. So what JHS did, Josh Scott, he's kind of clever. He thought, hey, let's do that in a pedal. So they
Okay.
got two Neve 1073 preamps back to back in the same pedal, so you can drive the absolute hell out of it.
Okay.
And they were doing it as a guitar pedal. And then that was really successful. So they made an actual mic preamp in what's called the 500 series, which is kind of these kind of slot based things. I really like 500 series. You can get preamps, EQs, compressors that all fit in these slots. I nearly bought a 500 series kind of rack a couple of years back. Had to stop myself because I didn't really need it because we've got lots of lovely BBC preamps already, which are very similar to the whole Neve thing. But then that was quite successful, but also quite expensive. So what they did now, and the news this week, is they've managed to make it back into a guitar pedal, but with microphone input and output, and lots more controls,
Mhm.
and half the price. Not entirely
So
sure how they've done that.
buy one, use it as a mic preamp.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's it. It's got mic preamp in there. They're £400, which, if I didn't already have everything that I have, I'd probably be jumping on that. Because that can go from super clean, super pristine Neve all the way through to sheer fuzz. Because it's designed to be driving two Neve preamp sections back to back, which can give you a real fuzzy kind of sound if that's what you want. But not like a guitar fuzz, it's a preamp fuzz. It's hard to describe. But it's got this new version's got lots of clever, more professional features, like being able to change where the bass, middle, and treble EQ goes. There's a high pass filter. There's a high and low switch for basically high gain and low gain.
So how close to a 1073 do you think it really sounds?
Um, Pretty close. I mean, they've managed to do it. Looking at the circuit, I saw they've done a full video, which is what's here on the JHS show. They do like a weekly show, and it looks pretty much identical. But instead of using vintage parts, which are really expensive, they've used equivalent parts that are modern and a tenth of the price that do the same thing. Which is just clever design of them, really, because some people get too hung up on vintage components when I think it's actually the circuit that makes it do what it does.
Mhm.
But yeah, apparently it's pretty good. And in fact, in that video, they make a song in the video and everything, drums, bass, guitars, vocals, everything, all recorded through color boxes. So I think the drums were run through four of them. The keyboards and everything were run through two of them in stereo, and it sounds great. And yeah,
So do you think you'd better hear the difference between an original 1073, a modern day 1073, and this pedal?
you're very hard pushed to. Um,
Because there's a
if you
huge
really,
difference in price between that. Like you're talking one, well, you need to buy a Neve console in order to be able to do that.
mm.
So you're talking like at least like what 80 grand or something, even for the smaller console. For the
Neve
modern
do sell
ones,
their preamps separately now.
yeah, the modern ones. That's what I'm saying though.
Oh
So
right, right.
so the modern equivalent, like I'm just looking at it now, the 1073 DPX
Yeah.
is like the dual channel one that they do. That's £3,000.
Mm.
2,800. That's for two.
Well, that's
Um,
partly because of the name, though. Let's
mhm.
be honest.
And then you've got and that's what I'm saying. Then you've got this for like 400 quid.
Mm.
So
Which means that two
interesting.
of them for stereo is 800 quid, which is still not cheap.
No, 2,800.
Well, yeah, it's a significant difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
sorry, yeah, 800 quid for two. Yeah. So
yeah,
it's 2 grand.
two
Well,
grand difference.
let's call up Neve, get them to send us a classic Neve console, and a couple of modern day ones, and we'll buy one of these pedals.
Fun
We'll see
fact,
how it all mixes.
the Neve company isn't owned by Rupert Neve anymore and hasn't been for a while.
Yes, because it's AMS Neve, isn't it? So
Yeah, I can't remember who owns them, but it's one of the big groups. Rupert Neve Designs is the company that Rupert Neve actually
yeah,
owns.
yeah. When you Google it, there's two brands. There's Rupert Neve Designs and AMS Neve are the
Yeah,
two.
and Rupert Neve Designs make the Portico stuff, which is very nice indeed. And is also, in my opinion, probably preferable because the Rupert Neve design stuff, he's kept working on his designs for the last 50 years instead of freezing them in time.
All right.
So now he can do things like have the warmth that you like out of something like 1073 on a switch, so you can turn it off. The noise floor on his new stuff is just not there. I mean, it's still his ethos, but just with lots more thinking and time and research.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very clever man, Rupert Neve, but in the early 70s, when some of this classic gear was made, he was working with what he had, which was, these components exist, make me the best quality preamp you can.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his brief back when things like the 1073 were made, which is great, and that's why they cost as much as a large house at the time, because the goal was, make me the best you can make. But since then, better components have been invented, better parts have come out, more refined parts have come out, manufacturing has improved, so tolerances are much tighter. And so, where everyone goes, oh, the 1073 was great, it was great. It is kind of great. Even for modern standards, it's pretty good. For its time, it was unparalleled. Which, I mean, the whole thing about Rupert Neve is he's always pushed boundaries. And people seem to forget that.
So there you go. Where's the headquarters for Neve Electronics?
Switzerland?
Burnley.
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 Of all the places.
Burnley.
Might pop in and say hello.
Yeah, AMS Neve is a privately owned independent company.
Oh. Huh.
It was the amalgamation of Neve Electronics and a company called AMS.
Yes, I know AMS. AMS used to make these fantastic reverb and delay units back in the 80s.
Yeah, professional studio equipment. Later merged,
Yeah.
Started in 1976.
Like
yeah,
the
all
RMX
delays
16.
and stuff,
yeah.
Yeah, DMX 1580 as well. Digital delay.
The stuff like "In the Air Tonight" by Phil Collins, that doo 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 doo. That's one of them.
Yeah. Mark Crabtree and Steve Nevision of Burnley started AMS.
Wow. How about that?
Yeah. How weird.
For that full bloke in a shed who knows what he's doing vibe. Yeah, absolutely nailed it in one.
Yes. How crazy.
But yeah, funny last tangent before we move on. Yeah, Rupert Neve constantly pushed boundaries. You know Focusrite, right?
I was literally just reading that on the Wikipedia right now, yeah.
Yeah, that's the next company that he made, and he made these ridiculous consoles. Yeah. So if ever I was to get a Focusrite ISA preamp, that's a modern Rupert Neve design.
Yeah.
And I know how good those things sound. The original Focusrite stuff is just incredible.
Like
the stuff now is very much watered down.
That's like a 96 channel one on Wikipedia. If not more. 72 in, 48 out.
That's bananas.
Mental.
Yeah, so the Focusrite Forte consoles were really rare because they were so damn expensive, but so good. Anyway, from the ridiculously expensive and Neve to the cheap and Chinesey, Joyo's new R15 pedal packs 9 classic preamps into one pedal. I'm not sure how much of this is digital and how much is analog modelling. It's probably digital. But it seems that they're having a go at kind of doing a bit of a Line 6 type thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this is a big thing that Strymon, who make real expensive pedals, have just made a preamp pedal called the Iridium, which, if you play that back to back with a real amp, it's kind of hard to tell.
Mm.
And these things
It's come
have
a
got
long
some...
way, as we said before, a long way since the Boss ME33 or whatever. Like, it's a
Yeah,
different world. So it's just to say that as well. You can get cheap pedal at $170 for something
yeah,
that can do this. It's going to do it better than that pedal did. So, like, kids these days, if this is the cheap, cheerful version of what kids are going to use to get that effect, it's still going to sound pretty damn good given the
yeah.
quality.
It's got some very clever features. Like, it's got a jack out to go to your amp, but it's also got an XLR out to go front of house. It's got a cab simulator in it, but you can switch a
Okay.
switch so that either the cab sim's off entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And some units, like the Strymon one, it's a bit of an issue at the moment. If you turn the cab sim on,
Mm-hmm.
if you then send that signal out to an amp, it's not going to sound right because it's got a cab sim on.
Yeah, of
But the
course.
front of house will sound right. But if you turn it off, your amp sounds right and front of house sounds wrong.
So you can't like isolate it from the other output.
Not as far as I know. Whereas this one has a three-way switch where the middle is exactly what I'd be after, which is where the cab sim is on the XLR that goes to front of house, and it's not on the one that goes to your amp.
So that's for a setup where you're not mic'd up on your cab, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Because if you're
So,
mic'd up, then you don't need it to go to front of house, unless there's a backup sort of thing.
yeah, exactly. But quite
Yeah.
often, it's preferable to send something like this to front of house rather than a microphone on stage. Because a microphone on stage, it can get knocked, it can get moved. There's usually loads of bleed from things like drums crashing away next to the amp and that kind of thing.
Feedback as well, like they can isolate the feedback by just turning that mic off and stuff if you have an
Yeah,
issue.
exactly. If there is no microphone, there is no issue.
Hmm.
Which means that the sacrifice that you might get in that little bit of extra tone from your guitar cab is made up for in the fact that it's completely isolated.
I mean,
So if
nice
there
front
is...
of house guy to be
Yeah,
able to just
exactly.
yeah. There's some feedback. Cool. Let's just kill all the amps. Right. Okay. It's not there. Wicked.
Yeah,
Mm,
that's it. And
without the sound really changing much.
the clever thing about a preamp pedal like this is you could turn up to a venue and they've got an amp on stage for you. It doesn't matter what kind of amp, as long as it's got an effects return. So you're not going through the front of the amp. You're literally just jumping into the back to the power stage and out to the speaker. You use your preamp with your sound.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I get you.
that amp that's on stage, within reason, will basically give you your sound.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Using the cab part of it. So.
well, yeah, exactly. So you're just using the cab for stage volume
Mm-hmm.
at that point, which means
Right.
that
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Because you're front of house. Yeah. 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 I get you. Yeah.
yeah, so you can then turn up to a show, like a fly date. You could have one of these on your pedal board with your distortion pedals, chorus pedals, whatever pedals you have. No amp. And you're fairly confident that it's going to sound pretty much like you want it to sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And for that kind of price, that's a pretty good kind of thing right there. I mean, especially if you're the kind of person who wants hands-on. Because you can do all this on something like a Line 6 Helix Stomp, but they're about 2 or 3 times the price.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how much better or worse the sounds are, but that's a discussion for another day. So, something I think we discussed last week, moving on, was that there was a really weird kind of B symbol with loads of different pedal manufacturers being mentioned.
Right.
And nobody knew what it meant. And it just seems like all these pedal manufacturers, there's a reverb shop that's selling all these really cool pedals, and they've been spray painted, so they are, as the name suggests, blacked out. So on stage, they're basically just black. I can see how some people would find that really cool, because it's like, how black? None more black. All the black. For me, I don't like it because on stage I want to be able to see what buttons I'm pressing.
Yeah.
But if you like that aesthetic of just all black, these pedals have all got a paint style that suggests it's kind of like the labeling's still there, but it's kind of black on black, so it's almost a gloss on matte type relief.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks pretty cool, and it's some of the hottest pedals right now, like the Walrus Audio Julia, Earthquaker Westwood, Meris Mercury 7. These are all limited runs of 100 pedals as well, so if you're a pedal nutcase and you really want a black, like Old Noise Blood Endeavours Minim, for example, you might want to get out there and get one now. The Chase Bliss Mood, apparently already sold out.
Wow.
And these were announced this morning. Yeah.
Bit weird.
So, yeah, some people are after weird stuff, though.
Yeah,
There's a whole almost cult evolving around guitar pedals at the moment. And, yeah, there's some pedals changing hands for thousands. So I can imagine some people going out and buying one of these each and just selling them when they're sold out for twice as much.
Yeah.
So, from pedals and talking about cab sims, last piece of news after a large drink.
Gulp. Gulp, gulp. Gulp.
Gulp indeed. Is this. Mesa Boogie today have announced, by basically dropping this on the Sweetwater website, the new cab clone IR. Last year before, a little while back, Mesa came out with this little box called the Cab Clone, which is a load box, and it had a kind of a cab emulation in it, and every review that wasn't paid by Mesa, it basically sounded awful. And there was no way around it, it just sounded terrible. And reviewers put it up against the competition, and it just sounded like you were playing with socks over the microphones, and it was just like terrible.
That's not how you play? Oh, okay.
No, apparently not. But Mesa were trying desperately to keep up with the kids, and all of their amps since have had the cab clone stuff inbuilt, which is no. So now they've done this cab clone IR, which there's two versions. And this is still a load box, which means you can use a 100-watt amp and jam it into this without actually using a speaker cabinet. And there's two of them. The Cab Clone IR, you basically jam your speaker in, and either it's a load box or you put your speaker through it, and then it's more just like a recording device. And then there's the Plus model, which is another listing, which is also a stepped attenuator, which can make the cab a little bit quieter, a little bit quieter, a little bit quieter, and then all the way down, so that you're just getting a little bit of volume out of it. And that seems pretty clever, because it's got impulse responses, which are what I tend to use IRs, on a switch, a rotary, so you can have up to 16 of them. But I'm already, even before I try it, picking out several flaws with this thing. Now, I am a little bit biased before I say anything, because I'm a big fan of the 2-note stuff, and 2-notes make the captor, which is kind of direct competition with this. The captor doesn't have the impulse response part, but it does have an attenuator that's fixed at minus 20 dB. But Mesa have made some weird choices here. But if I was to get a Torpedo Captor, which is $200, and a Torpedo Cab M, which is $300, that's $500 total, and they sit next to each other. The Mesa version is $800 for a start.
Right.
So that's a lot more. And there's some really odd choices here. Like the attenuator being in 4 dB steps and then with a knob is exactly the same as a load box that I had from THD, the hot plate, which I actually made a video with a song called Silence a few years back. It was kind of cool. But I got it originally for my dad. My father, he plays guitar at home, and my mum doesn't really like him playing at loud volumes most of the time. So tried getting the THD equivalent of this, and even at minus 16 it was too loud, But then we turned this second knob down, which that also had, to get the level even lower and lower and lower, and it just sounded really bad. Because you're not getting the speaker moving, and going through 2 stages of attenuation really sucks that tone away.
Right.
Which is not ideal. That doesn't affect the recording output quality, but it does affect what you're actually hearing in the room, which can kind of spoil the whole thing anyway, depending on who you ask. The other thing is, like, there's a cab and mic selector. Basically, what that really means is you're selecting an impulse response. And it's got 8 positions, which is cool. And then it's got a bank switch, so there's actually 16 positions. Now, for me, if I was the type of person who wanted this product, I probably want simplicity. 16 is too many to remember. I'd probably want 4 and no bank switch. It does have a USB connection on the back, so if the 4 that you put in it are not the ones you want, put different ones in it. Absolutely. But then, in my mind, I could then go like small cab, medium cab, big cab, silly big cab, or something like that. And then simplicity is done then. Another couple of little nitpicks that just worry me a little bit. On the back, it says internal load, and you can see on this picture here, 4, 8, and 16, and a tiny little dot in the 8 there. That's dangerous, having that small, because you need to match your impedance to your amp. And if that writing's that small, that means that there's quite a lot of chance of you setting the wrong thing there. The 2 notes ones have on the top of the unit a massive number in this corner that either says 4, 8, or 16, and you can see it from the other side of the stage. Which means that if you've taken your glasses off because you're about to rock, you can still set your amp up right. And, last but not least, it needs an 18-volt input to run this thing. If your power supply goes, you're not finding another one of those anytime soon. Whereas the 2 notes, the Cab M uses a 12-volt supply, which most pedal powers will do. And the Captor, if you're going to use the inbuilt cab emulation in that, just uses phantom power. Nothing else, just a flick of a switch, no other power. So, it might be a great sounding piece of gear, and I'm sure there are going to be people who get this and love it. Oh, the other thing, big nitpick. If you see this switch on the 5th image there that says speaker load, and there's a red light that says warning, no load when lit. Why the hell would you have that switch on the front? That is basically a switch that says, please blow up my amp. That shouldn't be there. That shouldn't be anywhere near where your hands can go. That shouldn't be an option you want to change in the middle of playing. That should just not be on there. If you don't want a speaker load...
switch as well. Yeah. It's quite an easy to flick switch as well.
Exactly. When your attenuator says -0 dB, which is that right switch all the way to the right, that is no load. That is all the sound going straight through. So what you really should have is the attenuator switch that has another click to the left, which is full load, and a click to the right where it says 0 dB, which should say no load. And it should be very obvious there, rather than having a very easy to switch amp blower upper.
Kaboom! The kaboom button.
I can imagine it now. Someone who's got like a Mesa dual rectifier or something, and they're not the most techie guy, but they want to play at home. They only trust Mesa for stuff, so they bought this because it's Mesa to go with their Mesa. They start playing. They turn it all on. They go, oh, 8 ohm to 8 ohm, click, click, set. And they go, oh, what does this switch do? Oh, that's a red light. They turn around and start playing, and 20 seconds later go, why is there no sound out of my amp? What is that smoke?
Rip.
Yeah.
Rip amp.
Yeah, that's just not great design there.
Yeah.
I mean, the rest of it, I'm nitpicking, and that's okay if people like that. Great. But that's dangerous. That speaker load switch should be on the back, away from human hands. And yes, I know that would probably be a bit more wiring inside the cabinet, but in terms of people's safety, that's going to cost Mesa a lot of money. I can see it coming. And so, I think that concludes this week's The News.
No, I have sent you another news because it's not directly music related, but it is monumental because time has gone into a black hole.
Back to the news screen. Half-Life what now?
Half-Life 3 has been announced. Finally.
Half-Life Alyx.
They're not calling it Half-Life 3 though because they're idiots and they hate us. Yeah, Valve dropped this week and then they dropped the trailer and launched it yesterday. This is their first full feature AAA VR game. And it is Half-Life 3 set in between Half-Life 1 and Half-Life 2. It's a non-prequel prequel.
It's
It
a
is
pre-sequel.
Half-Life 3. Yeah, it is Half-Life 3, but they won't let us have the satisfaction of calling it Half-Life 3. Which I think is the biggest troll of all time.
Yeah.
But
and it's VR only, apparently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're doubling down on VR with obviously their input. They're saying it's like 20 games or something they're saying they're going to do. But this isn't just like any VR game. This is arguably the VR game to start the whole genre really off. I mean, VR's done a lot of things, but Valve have basically put all their cards on the table with this.
Well, it's been said several times that things like consoles and things like that, and I'm going to lump this in with that whole system, is that you need a killer app. If you've not got the killer game or the killer app for whatever your hardware is, that's why you don't get many sales. And yeah, this could...
I know that it comes with, if you call it Half-Life 3, it's going to fail to a degree because it's never going to live up to the hype.
Yeah.
But for that exact reason that you just said, why not call it Half-Life 3? Because that could, actually having that. But then again, maybe they've done it just so people like me talk about it because everyone knows it's Half-Life 3. But so essentially, yeah, they have done that. They've said, let's kickstart our VR program properly, and the first thing we're going to launch on there is going to be Half-Life 3. Internet goes nuts. Looked on Reddit yesterday, or on Tuesday or something, and the trending word for the day was Half-Life. I was like, no, it's got to be like the anniversary of 10 years or something since Half-Life 2 came out, and nope, they are dropping this.
I think the VR has glitched out your camera for some reason.
Yeah, I'm going all disco.
Can you see it on your side? Or just on the stream?
No, just on the stream.
Alright. Because it fixed itself for a minute there, and then it decided, nope, we're not gonna.
I can be like Robot Man for the rest of the stream because we're done after the news, right?
We are.
Yeah.
That's just slightly off-putting. So nobody look at the Liam.
Don't look at me! Don't look at me! What if I try leaving and coming back?
Then you actually leave. There we go.
Yeah, I know, but
well, it worked. Okay. So, on to the script again. Where am I? As we move into the viewers' questions segment, and do get your questions ready, I want to mention briefly that we have affiliate links with Amazon. I was going to say DistroKid, but I say them every week. So I'm going to change it this week. We have links in the description of every video, which tell you some of the most popular equipment that we use in the studio when we're out and about. So, what you can do if you want to support us and you buy stuff from Amazon, not just in the US, but in any country, of those links in the chat, that's most similar to what you would be looking to buy. If you then go on to buy anything in that session, not even the thing you clicked, then you actually help us out. I'm probably not supposed to say something like that, but... if you click on that and buy stuff, we get helped out, and that helps us to keep going. So, yes, thank you everybody who buys stuff from Amazon, who we like, because Jeff Bezos gives me money.
Oh, Bill Gates has overtaken him again today.
Yes.
Bill Gates is now officially the most the
How?
richest man in the world again.
I
Again,
I thought
no
he'd
idea.
sold out. Oh,
Yeah, no,
cashed
um,
out.
ba- I don't know. Bezos makes 200 million a day. Something I read the other day.
Yeah, it's dizzying,
Like,
isn't it?
like, I mean, if I made that much money for at least 1 week, I'd be like, you know what? I'm just gonna drop some bombs on people and just walk around this, like, go around the world and just randomly just pick someone and give them $200 million. Like, why not? Just to fuck shit up and see what happens to the world if you just created random like 100 millionaires and it would cost them a week's wages
Yeah.
or
Blah.
whatever the actual number is.
That
It
would
just
be,
baffles the mind.
yeah, terrifying. So, what were we going to talk about? Yes, so viewers, get your questions in. Oh, here they come. Um, any idea if the USB audio drivers on the Behringer Xenix are okay for ACO? In my experience, lower end Behringer stuff doesn't have ACO drivers at all, and they actually recommend ACO for all on their website. That's how bad it is. I actually have somewhere knocking around here the Behringer, I think it's the Euphoria, the cheapest interface that was on Amazon, which I was going to make a video about, and I still need to get around to doing. I bought the cheapest interface and cheapest microphone on the entire of Amazon, and it was terrible because, yes, not good. Low latency is not a thing you get. You get the Windows drivers or you get the Mac OS X inbuilt drivers, but you don't get anything special. Yeah. Can't decide if you should expand your Apollo with an ADAT preamp bank or break away from the PC entirely with a mixer. And I gave up on the idea of a mixer because unless you're spending a lot of money on a mixer, the preamps are only a small part of the cost of one of a mixing desk, and they're probably the most important thing to you by a long way. What I found is you are far better off buying a better set of preamps, not necessarily £1,000 a channel, but like I'm reviewing the Arturia Audio Fuse 8 Pre at the moment, and that thing's incredible. They're I think €800, and that's 8 channels in and 8 channels out. I know that's not the cheapest, but I absolutely cranked the gain on some of those channels, and there was just no noise, no hiss. You could hear me scratch my beard from the other side of the studio. Like, that's ridiculous. Yeah, it could hear things I couldn't hear with my ears. And mixers, like Behringer Xenix mixers, you're not going to get that level of quality. You're just not. Because if you're spending 300, €400 on a 20-channel desk, think about how much after tax and profit had to go into making that desk, and then think about how much percentage of that was the preamps. Getting less and less and less and less and less.
YouTube thinks that Marty is sending something naughty to us. Can you see that?
No.
Marty says ACO for all is supported by Behringer Xenix, needs manual driver install. YouTube is like, are we allowing this? It's been held for review. This could be controversial. No, I think we'll allow that one. Oh, weird.
Question from David. Made a video a long time ago on mixing VST drums. Wondering if I could do something like that in the future. I'm pretty sure that recently I released a new version of that. The VST drums is part of the new Reaper series, so I agree it would go well with the Reaper tutorial series. It's in there. So thanks for the heads up, David. Have another look. You may have missed it. It may have gone past you. But yeah, it's in the new refreshed series. If it's not, I'll be very confused because I've definitely put that out.
Yeah, because you were talking about coming back to it again with a different view. Because originally, when we used to use a lot of digital drums in the studio, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
And then we moved to mixing it with cymbals, and you've now got your own way of working as per drummer, essentially, rather than as a rule.
I do tend to go more acoustic now than anything. I've changed my entire way of working, especially since I've been working with more drummers and drum companies. Yeah, so the David Ross, not David Ross. David Imrie was asking about the Xenix, and Marty says he's got a 24-channel Xenix. The power strip's so bad the levels vary from left to right.
Is that the video?
Uh,
Video from 2 months ago, VSTI drum routing?
Bingo.
There you go.
Yes, thank you, Liam. That video.
Cool. I'm
So
not just a lovely assistant. I can do things.
yes. Thoughts on using a Tascam 24 for a home studio? Tascam 24. What's a Tascam 24
I
when it's at
feel like
home?
we looked at that when we started the studio.
Oh, Tascam Model 24 analog mixer with digital recorder. Looks okay, I guess. Isn't it just a stereo recorder that only records the 2-channel output and input? Yeah. It's one of those things where, again, I don't tend to touch stuff like this anymore because exactly what I was saying, a lot of the money doesn't go into the parts that you're really going to use. If you're recording to any kind of computer, you're probably not going to want to do too much EQ on the desk. And I don't think stuff like this will give you all the channels out on the USB port. Because there's a lot of marketing stuff where I'm not seeing it say anywhere. Oh, capable of recording 24 tracks simultaneously. I stand corrected there. Fair enough. I wouldn't. I mean, if you want to do that, you do you. But you let me know how you go because it just seems. I used to run a big kind of budget level mixer and run all my channels through it. That's why I can tell you firsthand that the preamps on desks like this are nothing to write home about.
And even we've got the Allen Heath desk, which is not a bad desk by any means,
No.
but the preamps that we've got, like, we rarely need that number of quality preamps at the same time in a
Yeah.
real environment. Like, it's rare cases, and unless you have that rare case as your only way you want to record. But when you're tracking singly, and even then again, when you've got live band going in, the quality of the preamps across, like, make like the channels that we have compared to that's like what is it, a 24 channel desk, 48?
40.
40, yeah, like, you just don't need it. Like you say, you're paying for everything else in there. The only thing I would say, which is where the angle that I came at it from, is if you were home recording with a view to actually bringing bands in to record there, having a desk gives you a certain look that people expect when they're paying money, is
Yeah.
the reality of it. So part of the reason why we haven't sold that desk is when you go into the studio, there's a big desk there, and people that have never been in a studio before expect to see one. And it is stupid as simple as that.
Absolutely. It's one of those for us. It's become the kind of the song and the dance of
It's a piece of
presentation. But
furniture. It's a
yeah,
piece of furniture.
the other
It looks
thing
cool.
that I have learned in what I do is that this guy, seems to be a cheap way to get a lot of preamps technically and a hands-on interface. You don't need a hands-on interface. Here's the thing. You're not going to touch that desk. Once your gains are set, you're going to leave everything at Unity and you're never going to touch it throughout your entire session. If you're recording onto a computer, once it's recorded, you decide you want to turn your levels up and down, you'll probably do it in Pro Tools or Logic or Cubase.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to change an EQ, you'll do it in Pro Tools or Logic or Cubase. You don't tend to put your hands on the console at any point. The only reason that people put their hands on the console at all in big studios is because a lot of these like SSL desks have what's called automation, which is automation recording, which most of them now are actually hooked up through something like Pro Tools. so that all your automation, that kind of stuff, is basically just recording like mouse movements. And I find it quicker to actually do a lot of it as mouse movements because it's more
Like,
precise.
yeah, again, that the other desk we've just moved out of there, we bought that for that reason. We bought an old digital desk that didn't have great preamps, but had the automation tool so that we could use it as a giant console to control Reaper. And we spent a week setting it up, and because it was old and firmware needed updating, there's a floppy disk drives to get it working, but we got it working and we got the automation done, and then we used it for about a week and it looked cool. And then Adam just went back to using his mouse. I was like, sod this.
Yeah, because it takes you more time than it would. So he said he's running a Focusrite 18i8 and he's missing preamps and inputs to record drums. You keep using the 18i8. It's called an 18i8 because it's got 18 inputs. You're not using 8 of them because they're on an ADAT port. So get yourself one of the Behringer ADA 8200s, which are actually using Midas preamps. They're one of the best things that happened since Behringer made the acquisition of Midas. I'm just going to paste one of these in the chat. These things, I mean, they're not the best things in the world, but for the money, they're fantastic. So they're €160, 135 quid, probably 160-ish dollars. That's another 8 preamps in addition to the 8 that you've got in the Focusrite. So that's 16 inputs. If you can't record decent drums on 16 inputs, buddy, you're not doing it right. And that's, you know. So yeah, I mean, can you get better? Of course you can get better. But for what they are, they're actually quite decent, these. The old ADA 8000s were entirely average. The 8200s are cleaner, lower noise floor. What I would do then, if that was me, is I would use the first 8 channels on the Focusrite, and then as I run out of channels, the lower priority channels would be using this until it's full. It's kind of how I work in the studio now, because I've got loads of different preamp racks and input racks, because I'm running a massive ADAT system. But I just tend to prioritise my preamps, and I put the nicest ones on what I consider to be the most important sources. And then then it's the rule of cool, and then it's like, all right, well, what's left? So I tend to use the more basic preamps on things like, I don't know, toms or hi-hat mic or ride mic, stuff that's just in there to augment stuff, whereas like the overheads on the drums and the kick and snare tend to get premium preamps. Vocals tend to get premium preamp. Guitars where possible. I mean, generally speaking, again, I record bit by bit by bit. So what I'll tend to do, again, is I'll record drums. Oh yeah, so the 18i, it's got 4 preamps and 4 line-ins. Well, that makes 12 preamps right there. And that's what? Kick, snare, undersnare, 1, 2, 3 for toms. So we're at 6. Then we've got hi-hat, ride, 2 for overheads, 2 ambient room mics. That's 12. That's an entire full kit loadout. You don't need any more than that. If you do want more than that, you can, but it's luxury.
I suppose if you got a drum kit that's got like 10 toms,
then you have to make that drummer spend the money to buy you more gear.
Good answer. What if he is the drummer?
If a drummer's got unrealistic kits, then they have to go into a studio with expectations of paying the money to record that.
Yeah, late night Behringer channel, sales channel.
Yeah, QVC Behringer sales channel.
What we should do for a laugh is give away the old Behringer mixing desk we've got upstairs on the channel one day. I'll bring it in and I'll put it on, and we can auction it to the lowest bidder.
Yeah. We do actually have a Toman affiliate link in the bottom of the chat, in the bottom of the description for the video. If anyone wants to click that and buy Behringer stuff, feel free. What about the Audion ID44? The ID44 is a great interface, but it has exactly the same number of mic preamps and all that kind of stuff as the Focusrite. So whilst if AK was asking us what interface should I buy, I would start with the ID44. He already has a workable interface and is looking for more inputs. So it wouldn't save him any money. In fact, that would cost more because he'd then have to do a solution like this as well. The ID44 is amazing. And the 4 preamps it has are crystal clear, but again, it only has the 4. So I'm surprised. I thought the 18i8 had 8 preamps in it, but I guess not. Learn something every day. But wait a minute.
Quite like to hear, just thinking about it now, was to pick up one of those old, was it that old rolling interface that we had when we very, very first started?
Oh yeah, the Edirol.
The Edirol thing, yeah, that was it. I'm sure we could pick one of them up for pretty cheap. You use the desk upstairs and get you to mix something with the stuff that we started the studio with, and then do the same thing. We'll call it something with the stuff we started the studio with, and then again with our current setup, and see what the difference is. I think that would be really cool, because a big part of what we're doing is the journey, and that was like 10 years ago, whatever, where we would just literally we've talked about it on the show before, where we had, and again, do the same thing, just get a room, put some duvets on the wall, record it all as we did 10 years ago, and see what the difference is. I think that could be really fun.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. Yeah, I have to have a look for one of those Edirol things. So yeah, another question in chat. So this guy's got an SM7B microphone, one of these, and he's asking, do I need a cloud booster, cloud lifter? He's using a Prism Lyra. Prism do not make cheap stuff. Prism do not make bad equipment. So my first thought would be, no, you don't need a cloud lifter at all. What they're designed to do is boost the level of the input of a very low output microphone like a Ribbon or something like an SM7B, which, if you're using a lower end preamp or something that's like portable, they're not going to be able to do enough to make a nice clean signal out of one of these things. But with a very good interface, you really don't need that, honestly. I mean, this one's kind of broken right now. You'd need more than a cloud lifter to make this work. But yeah, no, things like cloud lifters are there to combat a very particular problem, which is poor quality recording equipment. Prism Lyras are ridiculously good. I wouldn't worry about that at all. Let's just see how much a Prism Lyra costs these days. Oh boy. So a Prism Lyra 1, they're still going for 1,500. Gee whiz. But yeah, I mean, my first suggestion would be try it. But the amount of money that those things cost, that should be more than fine. Yeah. I mean, they're usually used in mastering more than anything Prism stuff. But yeah, I can't see having much problem with that.
How much do you reckon those Edirol mixers are going for on eBay right now?
Oh, I'm going to take a stab at 70 quid.
The cheapest one going is 250 quid.
No.
People are trying to sell them between 420 and 540. What the fuck?
That's crazy. Which model was it again?
The M16DX.
M16, right.
Because that was just what I had at the time, because I was using it for well, yeah, it was just me, because at the time I was into mixing as well, just didn't have a clue what I was doing. And I'd bought myself one of them.
Oh wow. Yes, there's one going for £420. Wow. That's a lot.
Oh yeah, what do you mean? Do you reckon I recommend that someone spends the money on one of those? For £420? Hell.
I mean, 10 years ago, yeah. But, whew.
I know, it just made me laugh when I was looking at like what you're suggesting to these guys now, like set up as good interfaces and knowing how some of this stuff sounds compared to that. I mean, it was very digital. I mean, it was fine. It
Yeah.
did some stuff, but like, wow.
I mean, I went back out of interest to remix some stuff
Yeah, I
last
remember.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we'd recorded through a Behringer mixer into the line inputs of this. And once I actually got the gain staging right, it didn't sound the worst. It didn't sound the best. But it does just have 16 line inputs on that. But I remember the latency not being great because the drivers weren't great. And yeah, meh. It's just one of those things where, yeah, I don't know.
Remember, because that's kind of similar to what you were talking about the other thing. So I was like, oh man, it's a 16-channel mixer. But yeah, it's 2 out though.
Yeah. Yeah, 16 in, 2 out. And it can do loads of live mixing, which I, again, never used. It has room correction EQ on, which was absolutely disgusting.
Oh, that was hilarious. Spent ages trying to set it up.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, sounds better with this off.
Yeah, eventually I think we just went, yeah, let's not. And then just got the speakers away from the walls and learnt that lesson. This is 10 years ago, give or take.
At least, yeah.
Oh boy.
At least.
Maybe I should do the 2019 versus 2009 photo thing, but with that photo of me in the studio. If you remember, I've got really short hair, and there's just this, and a Behringer again. QVC channel for Behringer. Crappy little 2-octave keyboard behind me, and a single screen old AMD Phenom desktop. I think I was running Reaper back then.
Yeah, you were running Reaper then.
I've literally been running Reaper for a decade.
Yeah, because I'd never heard of Reaper. I was using Cubase. I was like, oh, so why are we not using Cubase? And you're like, let me show you Reaper. And I was like, ooh, okay.
Yeah, that's right.
And I remember just being like, why are you using this shitty software? It looks shit. It doesn't look as good as Cubase. And then you actually sat down and showed me how to use it properly.
Just had a message from Christian, by the way, our other co-host, who you may see every now and again. I've been mixing a song of his, and he's just sent me a version that vocals have been recorded for, which is rather cool. I went back and remixed an old song of his and just stripped all the plugins out and put newer, simpler plugins on, and it all sounds very, very brutal. So I might be able to play that on a stream in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, it's time for our segment where we do actually play a song that's been recorded by or mixed by us, and in this case it is both. So this, in fact, if I can... I think the sound quality will be good enough for you to hear over the stream. But this is by the Cavs, who I've played for you before, but this was essentially recorded live. This is a song called The Town I Was Born, and I had the drummer, the bass player, and the 2 guitarists all in the main live room, with the 2 guitar amps facing out towards the walls, bass amp barely providing any sound at all, just a little bit of reinforcement, and actually using the 2 notes La bass and Cab M for most of the bass sound, so that, like I was saying, I got the clean bass tone to mix with. And then in the vocal booth, the singer was playing an acoustic guitar and singing all at once. So we went back and we overdubbed an extra acoustic guitar for the stereo panning afterwards. I think we redid the vocal as well, just because we wanted to be picky about it, but we didn't have to. And that was it. And this was essentially recorded in about an hour. So this song is called The Town Where I Was Born, and it's by the Cavs. 1, 2, 3.
So many people running with their heads in the clouds, but I can't see the things that they see. I hear the words I hear 'cause they have no sound. But they talk about you and then I'm looking at you, so I found see that blonde girl sitting alone. Her eyes are wide, she's smiling, but she's not proud of all those stupid things that she's done. It's not the things you've done, but what you are now. She's thought about you, but she's not looking at you coming down. Walk these streets, yeah, they all look the same. You bump into the man with no name. Feels no shame, thinks that life is a joke. You live your life by the words that he spoke. He likes a bit of whiskey and quite a lot of coke. Gave that girl a 3rd-second chance. You let her in, though you know she won't stay. Just mind your back, or she'll ask you to dance. There ain't no rules for the games that she plays. You gotta buckle up, do what Sally says. I'm wide awake until I know the world is asleep. My head's spinning, 'cause I know that you'll try to keep me dreaming, even though you know they all die fast. While I'm lost in the future, you're hooked on the So don't look back, 'cause the sun's still the same. The second side's the only side I've not seen. The dreams that kept me have faded away. I'd like to dream of all the places they've been. I hope that I don't find you around the town I was born.
And that was listening to the sounds of Town Where I Was Born by the Cavs. And yeah, so Marty V said, yeah, not quantized then, live in the live room. Yes, I don't tend to do quantizing anyway as it stands. My philosophy is if the drummer's not playing in time, I go into the live room and I hit him and go, this is the timing, this is the timing, until they get it right.
He has a quantized stick.
Yes, the quantizing stick is very powerful. But yeah, no,
solo and quantized bass.
That was recorded live. The vocals, on the choruses we recorded 2 vocals, so it was very purposefully doubled. But on the rest of it, you might actually hear a bit of vocal bleed on the left-hand side that's on the original acoustic guitar track. But we decided that the isolation was so good that we kind of liked it like a doubling effect when we re-recorded the vocals, and so we just kept it. And yeah, I mean, it took a good couple of hours to get the setup of the drums tuned and mic'd and the amps set up and all that kind of thing. But it probably took us an hour to record that song, because we recorded 2 songs in the same day. And then I tend to pull a mix together as I go. And then I finished the mix off in my lunch hour today. So the solo was how many?
For the solo? Yeah.
The solo was 1 take. The solo was live. Yeah. That's it. And all I did with the solo is I automated the pan and the volume, so it came to the center and was lifted up to be center the stereo image, and then at the end of it, dropped it back down off to the side, so it was on the opposite side to the other guitarist. That was it. And yeah, I used some clever little mixing tricks to make it come together, like both of the electric guitars, especially when it's live, you can hear them on the bleed on the drum tracks, and that's no bad thing. But to give them a bit more space and to sound not claustrophobic, I send them both to a reverb that's got the left and right switched round. So the guitar that's on the left gets reverb coming through on the right, and vice versa. So they don't need tons and tons of reverb, but if only one of them is playing for a little while, it sounds kind of big and not just hard panned. But then if they're both playing, the reverb just kind of sounds right, and it just sounds pretty huge. Yeah, there were a couple of points there listening back to that where I think I could have brought the level of the drums up, especially when everything's going kind of crazy in the middle there. But we're talking about fine tweak automation there. We're not talking complete remix. So, yeah. As far as that goes, I mean, it really reminded me of the band The Kooks, who had massive hits with songs like Naive, and they played it for me before I hit record, and I knew exactly where to go with it. The lead guitar was a Vox AC30 with that Extinct Audio ribbon on it, which is really nice. And the other guitar was actually an Orange Crush amp, which is their solid state line, through a Zilla cab, of course, and with an SC ribbon on it, which made it suddenly sound really good. And yeah, the drums fit really well in the mix. We put a new skin on the snare, tuned it up from brand new. I've got 2 crashes that are mine, which have got cracks in and are starting to die. So I turned them into hi-hats and used 16-inch hi-hats, which is like huge. And they just sound great in that application. So I'm probably going to use them a lot like that now. Yeah.
Awesome.
Looks like we've got a conversation in chat going about the Kali audio monitors. I'm interested to see how those go. But yeah, out of all the other brands, I mean, I'm quite a known Adam Audio user at this point, but I've heard good things about Kali Audio. So I might check them out at some point soon and see if I can do a video for those guys, because I like doing reviews for things that are affordable, because it means that more people have got, access to options. And yeah, I've heard a lot of good things, and they're not particularly expensive.
Sounds good, man. Sounds good.
Yes, absolutely. So now that that has played, I'm going to take the no playing off, and I think, we've run a little bit over time.
Just a wee little bit.
Yeah. And this brings us to the end of this week's Hot Pole Position podcast. Once again, thanks to everyone who's tuned in live, 8 PM UK time, and thanks to everyone listening on catch up on YouTube and iTunes and Spotify. Thanks as always to our sponsors. Yes. On Patreon, round the globe. You help us to keep doing what we're doing. More videos are always coming out on the YouTube channel, especially now I've got more content ready to go. And keep an eye out. There's at least one video once a week, and earlier if you're on Patreon. Enjoy your week, everybody. We'll see you right back here at 8 PM next Thursday. Goodbye.
Adios. See you next week.